Story 1. The Thing in the Attic. Okay, let me set the scene. I was about 13 or 14 years old. You know, that age where your parents finally think you're responsible enough to stay home alone. Mine were heading out of town for the weekend, some weird family reunion with distant cousins they hadn't seen in years. I pegged off saying that I had a ton of homework, which was partly true, but mostly I just wanted the house all to myself. Freedom, right? I was stoked. I planned to play video games till dawn, munch on chips, and have pizza for breakfast. Man, I was living the dream. Or so I thought. So the first night alone, there I was, ensconced in the living room. Controller in hand, pizza box on the table next to me. I was deep into a late-night Call of Duty session. The glow from the screen was the only light in the room, and my headphones were on full blast. I was in my own little world, totally absorbed. But then I heard this weird sound. At first I thought it was part of the game. You know how they put those random environmental noises to make it more immersive. But then it persisted, even during the loading screens. It was this odd scratching noise, kind of like when a branch scrapes up against your window. Only this was coming from above, from inside the house. I tried to brush it off, telling myself it probably was just the house settling or the wind or whatever. But the more I tried to ignore it, the more pronounced it became, like this insistent itch at the back of my mind. I finally decided to investigate. Prying myself away from the game, I crept upstairs, all the while the scratching is getting louder and more eager. Now, our house is old. It creaks and groans in ways that would give a horror movie sound designer a field day. So part of me thought this was just another one of those quirks. Until the whispering started. It was faint at first, almost blending in with the scratching noise. But once I realized it wasn't just random sounds, it sent a shiver down my spine. It almost was like a low murmur, but then it started to sound like my name. It couldn't be. I figured it was just me freaking myself out. The sound was definitely coming from the attic. Now, our attic was this dingy, musty place full of old junk and memories. We hardly went up there, so I thought maybe an animal got trapped there, a raccoon or a squirrel or something. Armed with nothing but a broomstick and a shaky resolve, I decided to confront this invader. I pulled down the rickety attic stairs, the dust and the old house smell hitting me like a wave. It was pitch black up there. The lone attic light was at the top of the stairs. The scratching and whispering seemed to pause, as if it was waiting for me to make the next move. As I reached up to turn on the attic light, there was a sudden pop, and the bulb blew out, plunging the attic back into darkness. I won't lie, I almost peed my pants. Screw this, I thought. I wasn't about to go exploring in an unlit attic in the middle of the night. Heart pounding, I pulled up the stairs, slammed the attic door shut, and duct taped it for good measure. I tried to go back to my game, but every little noise made me jump. I ended up barricading myself on the couch downstairs, a fortress full of pillows around me. I spent the night jumping at every creak and groan from the house. The scratching continued overhead, sometimes faint, sometimes sounding like it was right above me. I must have passed out from sheer exhaustion, because the next thing I knew, I was jolted awake by an eerie silence. The house was unnaturally quiet. Not even the usual sounds of the old house settling. I looked around, heart pounding in my chest, when I saw it. The attic door was wide open. The duct tape was shredded as if something crawled its way out. The house was empty, no sign of anything out of place, except that door. I never found out what was in the attic, and the noises stopped after that night. But I could never shake off the feeling that something had come down from the attic that night. Something that was watching me. I've never been so relieved to see my parents when they came back. Let's just say, I never stayed home alone again after that. Story 2. The Shadow Friend. So back when I was just 16, my parents had scored this week-long cruise deal. First time they trusted me with the house for more than a night. Honestly, I was beyond pumped. The idea of having free roam over the house, doing whatever I wanted and whenever I wanted, it was exciting, you know. The first 2 days were the absolute dream. Netflix till the break of dawn, raiding the fridge for late-night snacks. No bedtime, no rules. I was living the ultimate teen fantasy. But things started to get wonky by day 3. I was nestled on the couch one night, engrossed in a thriller, when I heard the back door creak open. Now, our neighborhood was pretty safe, so my first thought, maybe a gust of wind or something. I went to check it, saw the door was wide open. No wind, no nothing. Weird, but I didn't think much of it, just closed it and got back to my movie marathon. Next morning, I wake up to find the back door open again. Okay, now this is starting to get creepy. I checked the lock, the door, everything seemed fine. Still, I was a little freaked out, locked up again, and went about my day trying to shrug it off. Fast forward to the night. I'm holed up in my room, my gaming headset on, deep in a match with my friends. Out of nowhere, I hear this loud thud from downstairs. A chill ran down my spine. I told my friends I'd be right back, took off my headset, and stepped out to investigate. As I'm tiptoeing down the stairs, I see this figure in the living room, just standing there. It was a man back towards me. I froze, heart pounding so hard I'm sure he could hear it. Panic surged through me, but before I could even think of what to do, he turned around. His face obscured, hidden in the shadows, but his eyes glinted ominously in the dim light. Then he spoke in a voice that still haunts me. "Nice place you have here. Pity you're alone." I swear I've never moved faster in my life. I bolted up the stairs, slammed the door to my room, and pushed my dresser against it, hands shaking as I dialed 911 and relayed what was happening in the hushed whispers. I stayed on the line until I heard the sirens wailing in the distance. The police searched the house, but by the time they got there, the guy was long gone. The back door was open again, but there was no sign of break-in, no fingerprints, nothing missing, no trace of the guy. It was like he vanished into thin air. My folks cut their trip short and came home, and we put up new security systems, got a big-ass dog. But the feeling of safety in my own home, that was gone. I kept reliving that night, the man's voice and his words. They were etched into my memory. I'm telling you, being home alone might sound fun, but when stuff like this happens, I'd rather pass. Now, every time my parents plan a trip, I tag along, because there is no way I'm staying home alone. Not after that night. Not ever. Story 3. The Unwanted Caller. So here's the thing. A couple years ago, I had just graduated college and I was finally living on my own. Scored a place in this old apartment building downtown. The kind of place that's seen better days, but was still hanging on, you know. The previous tenant left behind this cool rotary phone. You know the type, the ones you've seen in the black and white movies. It was broken, didn't even have a line connected, but it had this cool vibe, so I left it on my desk. I was scraping by as a freelance writer at the time, working from home, basically me and my laptop banging out articles and drinking way too much coffee. For the first few weeks, it was just me adjusting to my newfound freedom and the quirks of my new apartment. Then one night, I was pulling an all-nighter, trying to meet some insane deadline. It was around 2 a.m. when I heard this weird noise. Not from my laptop or my phone, but this old mechanical ring. It was the rotary phone. At first, I was like, what the hell? I picked it up, half expecting it to be crossed wires or something. But there was this faint old woman's voice on the other end, whispering, "Is there anyone there?" It freaked me out. It freaked me the hell out, so I hung up. But the phone rings again. Same voice, asking the same question. I unplugged the phone and chucked it in my closet and convinced myself it was some prank or weird dream. Next day, I'm meeting up with some friends and I laughingly tell them about the haunted phone. We all have a good chuckle, but honestly, I was still a bit spooked. The next night, I'm working late again, and guess what? The phone rings. This time, the voice is louder, scared, begging for help. I'm officially freaked out now. I unplug the phone again and bury it under a bunch of clothes and pass the night on the couch, watching sitcom reruns with the lights on. A couple of nights later, I've pretty much convinced myself that the phone thing was a result of stress or lack of sleep. Just as I'm about to call it a night, the phone rings again. The voice on the other end is panicked now, saying my name, pleading for help. I freaked out and ran out of the apartment and spent the night at a buddy's house. Next day, I get the building super to come check it out with me. We find that the phone line outside of my apartment has been messed with, connecting the old rotary phone again. We call the cops, and they trace the call back to an elderly woman who used to live in my apartment. Turns out, she had a breakdown and somehow managed to reconnect the phone line in her confused state. She was reaching out for help, thinking I was a long-lost friend. After that, I couldn't stay there anymore. I found a new place and moved out as soon as I could. Living alone after that was different. Every time my phone rings, I remember that old lady's voice, the desperation, the fear. It's like this chilling reminder of even the most everyday stuff can suddenly turn super creepy. Let me tell you, it's a different kind of horror when your safe space isn't safe anymore. Now I keep my phone on silent as much as I can. And old stuff? Yeah, no thanks. I've had enough of the past for a lifetime.